Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Life-Changing True Stories today. I bring you a powerful and deeply loving story. The autumn rain fell softly on the stone steps of St. Augustine Cathedral, creating tiny rivers that flowed toward the street below. Inside the ancient building, Olivia Bennet stood before the tall oak doors, her white silk dress clinging to her trembling form. She had imagined her wedding day countless times throughout her childhood, but never like this. Never with such emptiness in her heart, never with such fear coursing through her veins, and certainly never alone. Her father, Thomas Bennet, lay in a hospital bed across the city, too weak to walk her down the aisle. The cancer had ravaged his body, and the medical bills had ravaged their savings. When Damien Blackwood had appeared at the hospital 3 weeks ago with his proposition, Olivia had felt her world tilt on its axis. Marriage to him, in exchange for clearing all her father's debts and ensuring the best medical care money could buy. It was a business transaction, nothing more. Olivia pushed open the heavy doors and stepped inside. The cathedral was nearly empty. A handful of people sat scattered across the endless rows of pews, their faces unfamiliar. These were not her friends or family. They were business associates of Damien, witnesses to a contract being sealed, nothing more. Her footsteps echoed in the cavernous space as she began her solitary walk down the aisle. Clutching a simple bouquet of white roses that Grace, the housekeeper, had pressed into her hands just moments before, at the altar stood Damien Blackwood. Even from a distance, he commanded attention. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that filled his perfectly tailored black suit. His dark hair was swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, and eyes so dark they appeared almost black in the dim cathedral light. Those eyes watched her approach with an expression that gave away nothing. No warmth, no anticipation, not even curiosity. Just a cold, assessing gaze that made Olivia feel like a piece of property being inspected. Every article she had read about, Damien Blackwood painted him as a man without mercy. He had built his real estate empire by crushing competitors, by making decisions that destroyed other companies without a second thought. People called him the Ice King of Manhattan. Some said he had no heart at all. Looking at him now, standing rigid and expressionless at the altar, Olivia could believe every rumor. She reached his side and turned to face him. Up close, she could see fine lines at the corners of his eyes, evidence of stress or perhaps sleepless nights. His cologne was subtle, something expensive and masculine that mixed with the scent of old wood and incense. When the elderly priest began the ceremony, his words seemed to float around them like ghosts, intangible and unreal. Do you, Damien Blackwood, take Olivia Bennet to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. His voice was deep and controlled, revealing nothing of what he might be thinking or feeling. And do you, Olivia Bennet, take Damien Blackwood to be your lawfully wedded husband? Olivia's throat felt tight. She thought of her father, of the promise she had made to him. She thought of the life she was leaving behind, her small apartment filled with her paintings, her students at the community art center, who would wonder why their teacher had suddenly disappeared. She thought of all the dreams she had harbored for her future, dreams that were now being traded for her father's survival. I do, she whispered. The priest pronounced them husband and wife. Damien turned to her, and for the briefest moment, something flickered in his dark eyes. It happened so quickly that Olivia wondered if she had imagined it. Then he leaned down, his hand touching her elbow with unexpected gentleness, and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss lasted only seconds, cool and formal, but Olivia felt a strange warmth spread through her chest. Before she could analyze the feeling, he had already pulled away and was turning to lead her back down the aisle. The drive to Blackwood Manor took 40 minutes. Olivia sat in the back of the luxury car, acutely aware of Damien beside her. He stared out his window, his profile revealing nothing of his thoughts. She wanted to say something, anything, to break the suffocating silence. But what could she say? Thank you for buying me. Thank you for saving my father by making me your wife. The words died in her throat. And she too turned to watch the city give way to the countryside. Blackwood Manor appeared like something from a Gothic novel. The 3-story stone mansion sat atop a hill, surrounded by ancient oak trees whose branches reached toward the darkening sky like gnarled fingers. Tall windows glowed with warm light, but somehow the building still managed to look cold and unwelcoming. As the car pulled up the circular driveway, Olivia felt her stomach clench with anxiety. Grace Palmer, the housekeeper, stood waiting at the entrance. She was a woman in her 60s, with kind blue eyes and silver hair pulled into a neat bun. When Olivia stepped out of the car, Grace's face broke into a warm smile that was the first genuine kindness Olivia had experienced all day. "Welcome home, Mrs. Blackwood," Grace said. And there was such sincerity in her voice that Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. Damien moved past them without a word, reappearing into the house. Grace gave Olivia's hand a gentle squeeze. "Don't mind him, dear. He's not as cold as he pretends to be," Olivia wanted to believe her. But as she followed Grace through the grand entrance hall with its marble floors and crystal chandeliers, she felt more like a prisoner entering a beautiful cage than a bride coming home. Grace led her upstairs to a bedroom and took Olivia's breath away. It was decorated in soft shades of cream and gold, with a large four-poster bed draped in silk. French doors opened onto a balcony that overlooked the gardens. Fresh flowers filled crystal vases on every surface, and the faint scent of lavender hung in the air. "This is your room," Grace explained. "Mr. Blackwood's suite is at the end of the hall. He thought you might prefer your own space to adjust." Of course he did, Olivia thought. This wasn't a real marriage. Why would they share a room? "There's a bathroom through that door," Grace continued, "and the closet has been filled with clothes in your size. Dinner is served at 7 if you're hungry. Just ring this bell if you need anything." She indicated a small silver bell on the nightstand. "I'm usually in the kitchen or the east wing." After Grace left, Olivia explored her new quarters. The closet was indeed full of expensive clothes, all in styles she would have chosen for herself. How had Damien known her taste? She found silk pajamas, soft sweaters, elegant dresses, and casual wear. It was like someone had studied her preferences carefully. On the nightstand, she discovered a leather-bound book. Opening it, she found it was a sketchbook. Beside it lay a complete set of professional-grade colored pencils and graphite. Her breath caught. Painting and drawing were her passions, but she hadn't mentioned that to Damien. How did he know? That evening, Olivia made her way downstairs for dinner. She had changed into a simple dress and tried to calm her racing heart. The dining room was as grand as the rest of the house, with a table that could seat 20 people. Damien sat at one end, and a place had been set for her at the other, so far away they would have to shout to have a conversation. But as she entered, Damien stood and gestured to the chair beside him. "Sit here," he said. "That distance is ridiculous." It was the first personal thing he had said to her all day. Olivia sat, hyper-aware of his presence, just feet away. Grace served them a delicious meal of roasted chicken, vegetables, and fresh bread. They ate in silence for several minutes before Olivia gathered her courage. "Thank you," she said softly, "for the art supplies. You didn't have to do that." Damien's fork paused halfway to his mouth. He set it down and looked at her directly for the first time since the ceremony. "I made some inquiries about your interests. I want you to be comfortable here. Why?" The question escaped before she could stop it. "This is just a business arrangement, isn't it? Why do you care if I'm comfortable?" Something dark and unreadable passed across his face. "Just because this marriage wasn't born from romance doesn't mean I want you to be miserable." He picked up his fork again. "You gave up a lot to be here. The least I can do is ensure you have the things that bring you joy." Olivia studied him. This man who had purchased her presence in his life like one might purchase a painting or a car, yet who had taken the time to learn what she loved. "I don't understand you," she admitted. A ghost of a smile touched his lips, so brief she almost missed it. "Good, that makes 2 of us." The rest of the meal passed with occasional small talk. Damien asked about her father's condition, and Olivia felt a rush of gratitude when he assured her that the hospital had been instructed to spare no expense in Thomas's care. He mentioned that her father would be transferred to a private facility with the best oncologists in the country. When dinner ended, they stood awkwardly in the hallway. The grandfather clock chimed 9 times, and Olivia realized how exhausted she was. The emotional weight of the day had drained her completely. "I should let you rest," Damien said, his hands in his pockets. "Tomorrow, Grace will give you a full tour of the house and grounds. You're free to go wherever you like, do whatever you want. This is your home now." Home. The word felt foreign. "What about you?" she asked. "What will you be doing tomorrow?" I have meetings in the city. I'll be gone early and back late. Hesitated, then added, but I'll be here for dinner if you'd like company. There it was again, that strange courtesy. That unexpected thoughtfulness from a man the world said had no capacity for such things. I'd like that, Olivia said honestly. He nodded, then turned to leave. But he paused at the foot of the stairs and looked back at her. Olivia, he said, and hearing her name in his deep voice sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. I know this isn't what you wanted, but I'll try to make it bearable. Before she could respond, he was gone, disappearing into the shadows of the upper floor. Olivia stood alone in the grand hallway, her hand pressed against her chest where her heart beat a confused rhythm. She had married a stranger, a man with a reputation for coldness and cruelty. Yet in his actions and the small details like the art supplies and the flowers in her room, she glimpsed something else. Something he kept hidden behind those impenetrable dark eyes, as she climbed the stairs to her beautiful prison of a bedroom. Olivia couldn't help but wonder which version of Damien Blackwood was real. The ruthless businessman everyone feared, or the man who had made sure she had her favorite. Flowers waiting for her on the worst day of her life, she had agreed to this marriage to save her father. She had walked into it expecting coldness, distance, and loneliness. But as she slipped between the silk sheets of her new bed, Olivia realized that the truth might be far more complicated than she had imagined. And perhaps, just perhaps more hopeful too? The first week at Blackwood Manor passed in a strange rhythm. Olivia woke each morning to find Damien already gone, the house quiet except for Grace moving about in the kitchen. She spent her days exploring the vast estate, painting in the garden when the weather allowed, and slowly adjusting to her new reality. Each evening, true to his word, Damien returned for dinner. Their conversations grew longer, moving from polite small talk to more substantial discussions about books, art, and philosophy. Olivia noticed things about him that contradicted his cold reputation. The way he listened intently when she spoke, as if every word mattered. How he remembered small details she mentioned, like her preference for chamomile tea in the evening, which now appeared without her asking. The careful distance he maintained, never touching her unless absolutely necessary, as if afraid his proximity might cause her discomfort. On the 8th day, while Grace was in town shopping, Olivia decided to explore the wing of the house she had been avoiding. Damien had never explicitly forbidden her from any area, but there was one hallway on the 3rd floor that he never entered. Where the doors remained closed and dust gathered on the handles, curiosity finally overcame her hesitation. She climbed the narrow staircase and found herself in a corridor lined with family portraits. Younger versions of Damien stared out from gilded frames, and beside him in many of the photos was a girl with the same dark eyes and a smile that lit up her entire face. The last door on the left stood slightly ajar. Olivia pushed it open and gasped. The room was frozen in time, clearly belonging to a teenage girl. Posters of bands covered the walls, books were stacked on shelves, and a desk held notebooks and pens as if waiting for their owner to return. Everything was preserved perfectly, lovingly maintained despite the layer of sadness that hung in the air like perfume. On the dresser sat, photograph after photograph, Damien and the girl at various ages. Him teaching her to ride a bike, both of them laughing. Him in a graduation gown with her beaming beside him. The final photo showed them at what must have been her 16th birthday, her arms wrapped around his neck. His expression softer than Olivia had ever seen it. Her name was Rebecca. Olivia spun around to find Damien standing in the doorway. His face was pale, his jaw tight with emotion. She had never seen him look so vulnerable, so utterly exposed. "I'm sorry," Olivia stammered. "I shouldn't have come here without asking." No. He stepped into the room, his eyes traveling over the preserved space with obvious pain. "You live here now. You have the right to know." He moved to the window, staring out at the grounds below. "She was my little sister, 12 years younger than me. After our parents died when she was 7, I became her guardian." Olivia waited, sensing he needed to tell this story in his own time. "She was everything good in my life," Damien continued, his voice rough. "Bright, funny, full of dreams. She wanted to be a veterinarian, to save every stray animal she found." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "She was always bringing home wounded birds or lost puppies. I could never say no to her." He fell silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, His voice was barely above a whisper. 10 years ago, she asked me to drive her to a party. I had an important business meeting. I told her to take a cab, his hands clenched into fists. The driver was drunk. She died instantly when he ran a red light and hit a truck. Olivia's heart shattered for him. She moved closer, wanting to comfort him, but unsure if he would accept it. If I had just taken her myself, Damien said, his voice breaking. If I had put her first instead of my business, she would still be alive. Everything I've built, all this success, means nothing because I failed at the one thing that mattered. I failed to protect her. Damien, it wasn't your fault, Olivia said softly. You couldn't have known what would happen. He finally looked at her, and the anguish in his eyes made her breath catch. That's what everyone says. But I was supposed to take care of her. I was all she had, and I chose work over her safety. I've spent 10 years trying to fill the emptiness she left behind, trying to be so successful that maybe it would mean something. But it doesn't. Nothing does. Understanding dawned on Olivia. This was why he kept everyone at a distance. Why he had built walls of ice around his heart. He was punishing himself, refusing to let anyone close, because he believed he didn't deserve love or connection. Is that why you married me? She asked gently. Because it was just a transaction, nothing that could hurt you. Damien looked away. Partly. Your father needed help, and I needed. He struggled for words. I needed someone in this empty house who wasn't a ghost or a memory. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Through the window, Olivia could see dark clouds gathering. Within minutes, rain began to fall. Then a full thunderstorm erupted with flashes of lightning that illuminated the room in stark white bursts. A particularly loud crack of thunder made Olivia jump. Without thinking, she grabbed Damien's arm. He looked down at her in surprise. I hate thunderstorms, she admitted, embarrassed. Have since I was a child? Something shifted in his expression. Without a word, he guided her out of Rebecca's room and down the hallway to the library, cozy space with leather chairs and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. He settled her in a chair by the fireplace, which he quickly lit, then sat in the chair beside her. Tell me about it, he said. Your fear of storms. Thunder boomed overhead. Olivia found herself sharing the story of being trapped in a car during a terrible storm when she was 8. How the lightning had struck a tree nearby, how terrified she had been. Damien listened without judgment, and somehow his presence made the storm outside less frightening. Thank you, she said when the worst had passed. For distracting me. You distracted me first, he replied quietly. From my own storm, they sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire. Olivia was acutely aware of how close he was, how the firelight made his dark eyes appear almost warm. She realized with a start that she had been thinking about him constantly over the past week. Not with fear or resentment, but with growing fascination and something deeper. Rebecca would have liked you, Damien said suddenly. She would have loved your art, your kindness. She always said I needed someone to make me laugh, to remind me there was more to life than work. Tell me about her, Olivia urged. Not just about how she died, but how she lived, and he did. For hours, as the storm raged outside, Damien shared memories of his sister. Funny stories, touching moments, the way she had kept him grounded and human during the years he was building his empire. Olivia saw the love in his eyes, heard it in his voice, and understood that beneath his cold exterior was a man capable of deep feeling, deep love. When the storm finally passed and evening had fallen, they realized they had missed dinner entirely. Grace had left a cold supper in the kitchen, which they ate together at the small table instead of the grand dining room. It felt intimate, domestic, real, Olivia Damien said as they finished eating. I need to attend a charity gala tomorrow night. It's important for business. Would you come with me? As my wife? It was the first time he had asked her to appear publicly with him since the wedding. Of course, she agreed. I'd be happy to. The next evening, Olivia prepared carefully. Grace had helped her choose a midnight blue gown that hugged her curves elegantly. Her hair was swept up, and simple diamond earrings completed the look. When she descended the stairs, Damien was waiting in the entrance hall wearing a perfectly tailored tuxedo. The expression on his face when he saw her made her heart race. It wasn't cold or distant. It was pure male appreciation, desire barely contained behind the mask he usually wore. You look breathtaking, he said, his voice rougher than usual. He offered his arm. shall we? The gala was held at an elegant hotel ballroom filled with the city's wealthy elite. Olivia felt nervous entering on Damien's arm, but he kept her close, introducing her with obvious pride as his wife. She noticed how people looked at them with curiosity. How surprised they seemed to see the infamous Ice King with someone. Throughout the evening, Damien was attentive. He brought her champagne, stayed by her side, and when the orchestra began playing, he led her onto the dance floor. His hand on her waist was warm through the thin fabric of her gown, and being held in his arms felt surprisingly right. "Are you having a terrible time?" he asked as they swayed to the music. "Oh," she said honestly. "I'm actually enjoying myself." Something flickered in his eyes. "So am I. That's unusual for me at these events." They were interrupted by a man Olivia didn't recognize. He was handsome in a polished way with blonde hair and a smile that was too confident. "Blackwood," the man said. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your lovely companion?" "Wife," Damien corrected, his voice turning cold. "This is my wife, Olivia." "Richard Sterling," the man said, taking Olivia's hand and holding it too long. "What a lucky man Blackwood is. Though I have to wonder how he convinced someone so beautiful to marry him." Olivia pulled her hand back. "I didn't need convincing," she said firmly. "I married him because I wanted to." Richard laughed. "Loyalty. How charming." He turned to Damien. "We should discuss that property deal sometime. Perhaps over lunch." His eyes slid back to Olivia. "You should join us, Mrs. Blackwood. I'd love to get to know you better." Olivia felt Damien tense beside her. His hand on her back tightened possessively. "That won't be necessary," Damien said, his voice like ice. "And Sterling, if you value your business interests in this city, I suggest you remember that my wife is not someone you get to know better." The threat was clear. Richard's smile faltered. Of course, no offense meant. After he left, Damien looked down at Olivia. "I'm sorry. He's a competitor who doesn't understand boundaries." "You were jealous," Olivia said, surprised. Damien's jaw tightened. "Yes," he admitted. "I was. Watching him look at you, touch your hand, it made me want to." "We should go."
Ow.
In the car ride home, tension filled the space between them. Olivia could feel Damien's anger radiating off him, but it wasn't directed at her. It was something else, something more complicated. Back at the manor, they stood in the entrance hall, neither quite ready to retreat to their separate rooms. "Damien," Olivia said softly, "what's really bothering you?" He ran a hand through his hair, destroying its perfect styling. "I have no right to be jealous," he said. "This marriage is an arrangement. You're here because of a deal, not because you chose me. But watching him look at you tonight, I wanted to tell the whole world that you're mine." "Except you're not. You're just here because I bought your presents." Olivia stepped closer to him. "Is that really what you think? That I'm just here because of the money? Isn't it?" She reached up and touched his face, feeling the roughness of his jaw beneath her palm. "Maybe that's how it started. But it's not why I'm still here. Not anymore." His eyes searched hers. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that over the past 2 weeks, I've seen who you really are. Not the cold businessman everyone fears, but the man who remembers I like chamomile tea. The man who loved his sister so much he can't forgive himself for losing her. The man who looks at me like I'm precious." "You are precious," he whispered. "You've become so precious to me that it terrifies me." "Does it terrify you?" "Because everyone I love, I lose. And I couldn't bear it if I lost you too." Olivia's heart swelled. "Then don't push me away. Let me in, Damien. Let me be your wife and more than just name." For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then, slowly, he lowered his head and kissed her. Not the formal kiss from their wedding, but a real kiss. A deep and passionate, and full of all the feeling he had been holding back. Olivia melted into him, her arms wrapping around his neck, kissing him back with equal fervor. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Damien rested his forehead against hers. "I'm falling in love with you," he confessed. "I've been fighting it, but I can't anymore." "Then don't fight it," Olivia whispered, "because I'm falling in love with you too." The morning after their confession, Olivia woke to find Damien sitting in the chair beside her bed, watching her with an expression of wonder. She had insisted he stay with her the previous night, and they had fallen asleep in her room, wrapped in each other's arms, talking until the early hours about everything and nothing. "Good morning," she said sleepily, smiling at him. Good morning. Mrs. Blackwood, he replied, and this time when he said it, the words carried warmth and affection. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I've been watching you sleep and thinking about how lucky I am. You watched me sleep. That's slightly creepy, she teased. He laughed and the sound filled Olivia with joy. It was the first time she had heard him truly laugh, unguarded and genuine. I suppose it is. I can't seem to stop looking at you. Now that I've admitted how I feel, I can't hide it anymore. Over the following weeks, their relationship transformed completely. Damien began coming home earlier, eager to spend time with Olivia. They took long walks through the estate grounds, had picnics by the lake on the property, and spent evenings reading together in the library. He was teaching her about his business, genuinely interested in her opinions. While she shared her passion for art, even convincing him to try painting with her one afternoon, the physical attraction between them grew stronger with each passing day. Stolen kisses in hallways, lingering touches at dinner. The way they couldn't seem to be in the same room without gravitating toward each other. But Damien was careful, always making sure Olivia felt safe and respected, never pushing her faster than she was ready to go. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of her room watching the sunset, Olivia turned to him. I have something I want to talk to you about. Damien tensed slightly. That sounds serious. It is, in a way. She took his hand. I know you're trying to be respectful, keeping your distance physically. But Damien, I'm your wife. I want to be your wife in every way. I'm ready for that. His eyes darkened with desire. Olivia, are you sure? I don't want you to feel pressured. I'm sure, she said firmly. I love you, and I want to show you how much. That night, Damien carried her to his room, and they finally consummated their marriage with a tenderness and passion that left them both in tears. As they lay tangled together afterward, Damien held her close, kissing her forehead repeatedly. I never thought I could feel this happy again, he whispered. You've brought light back into my darkness. You were never as dark as you thought, Olivia replied, tracing patterns on his chest. You just needed someone to remind you of your own goodness. The next few months were the happiest of Olivia's life. She and Damien grew closer every day, learning each other's quirks and preferences, building a real partnership. Her father's health improved dramatically, and he was able to visit them at the manor, delighted to see his daughter so genuinely happy. But Olivia noticed that Damien still carried guilt about Rebecca. On the anniversary of her death, he disappeared into Rebecca's room and didn't come out for hours. Olivia finally went to him, finding him sitting on the floor, looking at photographs. Tell me about this one, she said, sitting beside him and pointing to a picture of Rebecca with a puppy. Damien smiled sadly. She found that dog in a dumpster. It was sick and covered in fleas. I told her we couldn't keep it, that I was too busy to take care of a pet. She looked at me with those big eyes and said, Damien, if we don't save him, who will? He shook his head. We kept the dog. She named him Hero because she said he was brave for surviving. He lived to be 15. Died peacefully in his sleep 2 years ago. I still miss him. Olivia leaned her head on his shoulder. She sounds like she was an amazing person. And she raised you well. She didn't raise me. I raised her. No, Olivia said gently. She raised you too. She taught you compassion, taught you how to love unconditionally. Those lessons didn't die with her, Damien. They're still part of who you are. He turned to look at her, his eyes shining with unshed tears. How do you always know what to say? Because I love you. And I see you clearly. All of you, including the parts you're afraid to show the world. Damien pulled her into his arms. I don't deserve you. Yes, you do. You deserve happiness, love, and forgiveness. Especially self-forgiveness. She pulled back to look at him seriously. Rebecca wouldn't want you to spend your life punishing yourself. She would want you to live, to love, to be happy. Honor her memory by doing that. For the first time since Rebecca's death, Damien felt the weight of his guilt begin to lift. Olivia was right. Carrying this burden wasn't honoring his sister's memory. Living fully, loving completely, that was the real tribute. I want to do something, he said suddenly. I want to establish a foundation in Rebecca's name. For animal rescue and veterinary scholarships, it's what she would have wanted. Olivia's eyes lit up. That's a wonderful idea. I'll help you with it. Together, they threw themselves into creating the Rebecca Blackwood Foundation. Olivia used her artistic skills to design the logo and promotional materials, while Damien used his business acumen to ensure the foundation would be sustainable and impactful. The project brought them even closer, united in purpose and love. 6 months after their wedding, on a beautiful spring morning, Damien surprised Olivia with a question over breakfast. "Would you marry me again?" he asked. Olivia looked up from her tea, confused. "We're already married." "I know, but that wedding was cold and empty. I want to marry you again, properly this time. With your father there to walk you down the aisle, with our friends watching, with me telling you in front of everyone how much I love you. Will you give me that chance?" Tears filled Olivia's eyes. Yes, absolutely yes. They planned an intimate ceremony in the garden of Blackwood Manor. This time, there was no emptiness, no transaction. Just love. Olivia's father, now in remission and healthy, walked her down a flower-lined path to where Damien waited under an arch covered in white roses. Grace cried happy tears as she watched, along with a small gathering of close friends and colleagues. When the minister asked if Damien took Olivia to be his wife, his response was clear and full of emotion. "I do. She is my heart, my light, my everything. I will love her and cherish her for all my days." And when Olivia gave her vows, she looked into his eyes and said, "I came into this marriage thinking I was sacrificing my freedom. Instead, I found it. You freed me to be myself, to be loved as I am. You are my home, my love, my forever." Their kiss was met with applause and cheers. And this time, when Damien looked at his wife, his eyes held no coldness, only warmth and love and promise. At the reception, as they danced their first dance as husband and wife for the second time, Damien whispered in her ear, "Thank you for saving me." "We saved each other," Olivia replied. "That's what love does." Later that evening, as they stood on the balcony watching their guests, Olivia noticed Damien looking up at the stars. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "I'm thinking that somewhere Rebecca is smiling. She always said I needed someone who wouldn't put up with my stubbornness, someone who would see through my walls. She would have loved you. I wish I could have known her." "You do know her," Damien said, pulling Olivia close. "She's in every act of kindness you show, every time you refuse to let me hide from my feelings. Every moment you remind me that love is worth the risk. She brought us together, in a way. I believe that." Olivia rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Then I'm grateful to her, for helping create the man I love." As the evening turned to night and the stars glittered overhead, Olivia reflected on the journey that had brought them here. She had walked down an aisle months ago believing she was entering a prison, marrying a man without a heart. Instead, she had discovered that the coldest exteriors often hide the warmest hearts, that love can grow in the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the greatest gifts come in the most surprising packages. Damien Blackwood was no longer the feared Ice King. He was simply Damien, her husband, her love, her home. And she was no longer the reluctant bride, but a woman who had found her place in the world beside the man who needed her as much as she needed him. 3 months later, Olivia discovered she was pregnant. When she told Damien, he lifted her into his arms, spinning her around with joy. That night, they lay in bed talking about the future, about the child they would raise together with love and laughter. "If it's a girl," Damien said softly, "I'd like to name her Rebecca." "I think that would be perfect," Olivia agreed. "And we'll tell her all about her aunt, about the wonderful person she was named after." "She'll be loved," Damien promised. "So loved, and she'll grow up knowing that love is the most powerful force in the world, because it transformed her father from a man who had given up on happiness into someone who couldn't imagine life without it." When little Rebecca Blackwood ran through the halls of Blackwood Manor, her laughter echoing off the walls, both Damien and Olivia would remember that cold day when they had stood at an altar as strangers. They would remember the long journey from emptiness to fulfillment, from loneliness to love, and they would be grateful for every moment, every challenge, every step that had led them to this full, beautiful life they had built together. Because sometimes, the most unexpected beginnings lead to the most extraordinary love stories. The end. Epilogued. 10 years after their first wedding, Olivia stood in Rebecca's old room, which had been transformed into a playroom for their 3 children. Rebecca, now 8, was teaching her younger brothers, Thomas and William, how to draw. Damien came up behind Olivia, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, kissing her neck. "About how much has changed? How much we've changed?" "For the better," he murmured. "All because you walked into my life and refused to let me stay locked in my cold tower?" "You weren't as cold as you pretended," Olivia reminded him, turning in his arms. "You were just waiting for the right person to thaw your heart. And you were waiting for someone to show you what real love looks like," he countered, kissing her softly. "We found each other at exactly the right time." As their children's laughter filled the house that had once been so silent, Olivia knew he was right. Their love story hadn't been conventional, but it had been real, transformative, and enduring. From an arranged marriage born of desperation had come the deepest, truest love either of them had ever known. And that, Olivia thought, as she kissed her husband, was the greatest miracle of all.